Hello and welcome to The Price of Music, brought to you by Music Ally. If you want an easy guide to what's going on in the music industry and how it all works, then here we are, looking at the finances of the music industry, while also bringing you the stories and comments from the pop business in the last week. He's Stuart Dredge. I'm Steve... I'm Joe Sparrow. Let's start with the financial facts, Stu, which caught your eye this week.
Yeah, I've got a big number to tell you about. My big number is 1.16 billion. And that is the number of streams so far, with an asterisk that I'll get into, for Drake's 3 new albums, which came out on the 15th of May.
Right. Okay. So for people who are not Drake mega fans, he released not 1, not 2, but 3 albums on one day. Previously known as a triple album, I guess, but these are 3 individual albums.
It's true, yeah. So like for the last year, I think, he's been teasing this new project while occasionally suing record labels and shouting, called Iceman. And that's the main album that came out. But yeah, on the day, he was like, haha, I've got 2 new albums as well. So Iceman is the main album, which I think
and
is...
that's an album of Vanilla Ice covers, is that right?
It is, yeah. Just covering Vanilla Ice's first album, track by track. And I guess that's just kind of his traditional rap. Then there's Habibti, which is, I think I'll describe it as sad bangers. So it's more R&B, mellower. And then Maid of Honor, which is happy bangers. So that is more housey, upbeat. So it's kind of, there's a genre split here. And they all came out, and on the day they broke various records on our streaming service, as every big new album seems to. Like you get these press releases saying it's the most first day streams by a Canadian rapper whose surname begins with D, this year. Everything breaks records.
So my question is, why do we care? Like, why does these big numbers feel important when we talk about Drake?
Well, I think it's the discourse, isn't it? Which I know we're only adding to. But the discourse around this is, can Drake come back from the Kendrick Lamar thing? Where, and again, without wading into those waters and getting us in trouble, I think it was the consensus was that he came out worse from that rap battle.
Yes.
And Kendrick Lamar proceeded to rub his nose in it.
Massive public humiliation, I think, was the takeaway.
But he's still a big star. And so this project is quite important. And that's, is this Drake's, is it going to be a flop? Or is it going to be Drake's comeback smash? And those are the 2 narratives open to us, and nothing else is allowed.
Yeah.
And I mean, so the figure I had was like 1.16 billion streams. Now, like, there are 2 singles that came out a year ago on this project, and they've done lots of streams. So it's not a billion stream project yet, because it's had a lot of those 2 singles kind of skew it. But he's got just under 98 million monthly listens on Spotify. So it's taken him back to being the 9th biggest artist. Behind, and this may smart a little, he's behind the likes of Bad Bunny, Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga, Michael Jackson,
right?
Rihanna. Last studio album came out in the 18th century.
Yes.
The Weeknd, Bruno Mars, and Justin Bieber has got 141 million. So it hasn't taken him back to the top of the pyramid, but it's done all right. It's done all right.
I'm no maths whiz, but even I know that if you release 3 albums at once, you're probably going to triple the number of streams, right? Because you've got 3 times as many things to listen to.
Are you going to divide the streams out? Are you going to divide, like, say Drake fans have a certain amount of time to listen to Drake when his new project drops? Are you not just kind of the same amount of streams spread over 3 albums?
I mean, it feels a bit exhausting, doesn't it? I mean, famously, triple albums are very, very difficult to sell. The Clash's Sandinista is kind of good, but you're always thinking, I wonder if we could have trimmed, at least a third of these tracks out. And that's my first thought. Second thought is, when you listed that top 10 on Spotify, this feels really solidified now. Like these top artists, it feels like Bieber is going to be near the top forever. And it feels like a sort of, that by looking at the all-time numbers, isn't that quite reductive? Like, who cares? Because like the top 10 are always going to be a kind of a configuration of those, aren't they? Pretty much.
Yeah. Although plucky young emerging artist Michael Jackson has just broken into top 10. So
my lawyers have requested that you make no connection between Michael Jackson and Drake.
That's true. But I think the thing is, this is what I was thinking about this story is there's this rush to go. We have to dub it a success or a flop now, when in fact we need to wait a couple. So I was looking at like the two comparable albums this year. So BTS's Arirang came out on 20th of March. Right, that's done 2.6 billion streams. in sort of 2 months more. Harry Styles' Kiss All the Time Dislocations, that came out on 6th of March, and it's got 1.05 billion streams. So by that reckoning, Drake is already on course to be bigger than Harry Styles' new album. But he BTS. So I think in a couple of months' time, we can look at it, compare it to those two albums, and say, okay, where is he in that upper echelon of new album
Yeah,
releases?
there's this sort of allergy to having a flop era, isn't there? And if you think about Michael Jackson's pop career, he had a huge flop era. Like everything after Dangerous was pretty much a flop in terms of public success. You know, he never really rekindled the heights of even Bad. So, you know, but then with hindsight, of course, catalog makes that a non-issue. But like it sort of takes a bit of the risk taking out of it, doesn't it? I mean, I recognize he released 3 albums, which is a risk, and there are 3 different types, which is a risk. But I'm sure an artist who has a budget of hundreds of millions of dollars can get the best songwriters and producers in the world, and you're sort of guaranteed a level of success, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we should nod to the theory online this is about him fulfilling his contract with Universal Music. So he's got this deal. It's not really a standard deal, I think. It's like he redistributes through them, but it's, and obviously he's also suing them for defamation.
So we had 3 left on this deal, I guess.
Well, people are saying this is obviously about finishing up his contract and leaving. No one seems to be saying that claim who also has any receipts showing they know what the deal is like. It's a theory, not a kind of there's no grounds in fact yet. But
you and I know music industry lawyers, and I feel that they would probably have put a clause in a contract saying, "Hey, you can't just like fart out 3 albums in order to get out of a deal." You know?
Well, is that and that's exact wording.
Yes, exactly.
But anyway, but Drake is quite popular. It's my not particularly revolutionary finding here, but I think we should try and avoid hot takes on the success until I don't know mid-July, and then we can go in 2-footed with a flop or.
I'm sure the internet will respect your call for a pause and some waiting. Okay, let's move on to the big news stories this week. This is one of those things that sounds like it's going to be boring, but actually has interesting stuff in it. Spotify held its Investor Day last week, and it unveiled some new features, including 2 big pieces of music news, one around ticketing and one around AI. Stu, pray tell.
Yeah, well, so this isn't, like you say, it's an event that's really about talking to Wall Street, I think, isn't it? And saying, look how well things are going and how brilliant we are and all our new things. Please send our shares soaring and make us rich. But it's also the day when they announce some quite big new stuff. So the ticketing one I thought was really interesting. So it's this thing called Reserved. And basically what's going to happen is Spotify's now going to have access to some tickets for like hot tours, and it's kind of superstar stadium and arena tours, but also smaller up and coming bands too. It's not just the biggest stars. And what it's going to do, or what its algorithm's going to do, is crunch data on listening and sharing and following and playlists and everything people have been doing, and say, right, okay, I've got tickets for, now I'm going to say, I don't know, BTS as the hot tour. They haven't announced they've got BTS tickets. This is me saying as an example.
Right.
And say, okay, well, we know on the route of that tour, here are the, 2,000 biggest BTS superfans based on our algorithms crunching of data. We're going to notify and email every single one of them and say, we've reserved you 2 tickets. You don't have to join a queue. You don't have to you don't get a code to get access. We've reserved them for you. Here's a link. You've got a day to go in, choose tickets and buy them.
Now, I kind of like this. I feel like this is a kind of thing that fans will potentially quite like, right? It sounds like a good use of data and geolocation and live.
Yeah, and they've got a deal with Live Nation to do this, and they're going to have other promoters. And I mean, it's interesting though, I think, because it's by its nature, they can't say what the methodology is in too much detail, because then obviously you'll be like, oh, with them out to BTS, I'm going to go and do this and that and this and that to game it. So you're going to have 2,000. In that case, you're going to have 2,000 superfans who are delighted, and you're going to have however many more who haven't been sent an email notification going, well, I didn't get I'm a super fan. Why didn't I get in? So there is a risk there, I suppose, of the people you don't give stuff to. But yeah,
I do like it. I mean, because every year I get my Spotify Wrapped, and I discover I'm in the 0.1% fan group for a certain artist. And if I was told, "Hey, we know you live in Berlin. This artist is touring. I've got a ticket ready for you," I'll be really happy about that.
Yeah, and it's kind of tackling that. It's part of the wider thing to tackle that thing of like people want to fill venues with real fans, and real fans who haven't had to pay some tout 4 times the price. So I think it's a good idea, and details are relatively scarce, and like they haven't said who they've got the first ones for, which artists are working with. That will be quite important to understand the scale of it. It's starting in the US first. And they've actually stolen a bit of a march because a year ago, the boss of Live Nation, Michael Rapino, did an earnings call, and he kind of, blabbed is the wrong word. I think he knew what he was saying. Said, "Oh yeah, we've been talking to Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon about giving tickets allocations to them. We'll see who makes the best offer to us." And Spotify's deal is exclusive for I don't know how long, but it's exclusive. So it means its rivals can't do a similar deal for the moment with Live Nation to do this kind of feature. So it's not it's kind of competitive fun and frolics on that score.
I mean, it definitely gives, we talked a long time about streaming platforms trying to find differentiation between all these identical services, and this is a real one, right? This is of interest. What about the AI announcement then?
Yeah, well, this was it came out today, and it was Universal Music Group and Spotify, who have been working together on AI stuff for a while. They signed a sort of an agreement last year to work on stuff. And now they've firmed it up as, and I'll quote it, a new tool allowing fans to create covers and remixes of their favorite songs from participating artists and songwriters. Which, alas, it's not a lot about letting you or me get our acoustic guitar out and murder a Fate of Ophelia, as much as I'd love to do that. Don't know how it quite works, but yeah. And if you want to use this thing, it'll be an AI tool to kind of create these covers and remixes. You have to pay an extra fee. So it'll be something on top of your Spotify subscription. You'll pay for it to use it. And then the musicians will get royalties from that, or rather Universal and labels will, and they'll pay. So the idea is it's a way to use AI to make covers that the artist has said this is okay, and they're going to earn money from.
So my first question is, what is this for?
Who is it for?
Yeah.
I mean, do you know, we had our Musical I Connect conference earlier this year, didn't we? We had Universal were talking, and this idea came over, like, wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great to hear Jimi Hendrix cover Bitches Brew by Miles Davis? And this is the sort of thing they obviously had in mind there. And at the time, I remember the room being divided between people who thought that was the worst possible thing imaginable, and people who were kind of like, actually, that sounds quite fun.
And I was definitely, by the way, in the former camp. Like, I just, for clarity, I just don't know. I don't know why I would want this. I don't know why I would want to hear, other than for like reasons of novelty, why I would want to hear artist X doing a version of artist Y's song. I just don't know why I would want that. That's me.
No, but similar with me, really, which maybe implies we're not the target audience, and there are people who would love. Maybe, is it the young people? But the interesting question here is: this is not going to be something that you just get given on Spotify and you can use it and play with it and try it out.
But where can you put the songs afterwards? Can you?
Wow,
are they shared only on Spotify or what?
I mean, I'm assuming. Well, I'm going to assume that you can listen to them yourself. Now, can you share them with friends, and how? Can you share them on social media? Can you share them within Spotify with friends? I'm going to be very not putting my neck out on a limb here and say I don't think you'll be able to put them on Spotify for people to stream generally.
Right.
I certainly wouldn't think you'd be able to get royalties from them.
Yeah, that feels like a line that's can't.
But no, the details of that are unclear. And so the other thing that happens here is, so Universal Music have done this deal with Spotify to create the tool, to license the tool. What needs to happen next is Universal Music are going back to artists and songwriters, which has already been happening, and say, are you in or out of this? Are you going to be in? Because it made it very clear, participating songwriters and artists. So they don't have to be part of this. This isn't going to be done to anyone without the permission.
It does feel that this is a sort of shift, isn't it, from making new IP from old IP. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think, I listen to music, I want to hear humans creating stuff, not because they're humans, but because it's new. It's coming from somewhere new. And it's not like, hey, what would Jimi Hendrix doing Billie Jean sound like? It feels like the laziest, to me, version of creating something.
Yeah, and I think the thing about this, and like you touched on, how can you share this? Because I think some people out there will use this feature and make something really good, and it might not be the obvious Jimi Hendrix covering blah. It might be they'll do something with someone's song that is a brilliant remix. And so then the question is, okay, someone's done something brilliant with this. How is everyone going to hear it? Because if only that person can hear it, that's not going to sell the feature to other people. And that's the key thing is Spotify's going to have to sell this to people. You have to pay for it to do it.
Yeah.
So they're going to need to have something up that shows you this is how it's brilliant and fun. And
there's got to be something in it for them, hasn't there? Yeah. So details have leaked out about the new service from Udio called Starstruck. which sounds very flashy. What is it?
Yeah, we're basically going to repeat our last 5 minutes again because
Right, okay.
This is very similar sounding to what Spotify and UMG are doing. So Udio is a rival to Suno, not quite as big. And they've been signing licensing deals with labels. And they've said they're working on a new version. It's going to be fully licensed and it's going to be kind of fun. And then they did this private event. I think it was with Cobalt to sort of explain what the new thing is. And someone recorded it and sent that to Water and Music, the kind of online industry community.
Sherry Who formerly of this parish.
Who gleefully published all the details so we can all talk about it. So an app called Starstruck. It lets fans, and the quote is, remix, cover and reimagine songs by their favorite artists, with royalties going to his artists. And they sort of detailed these 4 features. So, and this to our point about what is this going to be? So one of them is called cover, and that lets you create one artist covering another song. So I don't know, Charlie XCX covering Taylor Swift. Reimagine keeps the lyrics, rewrites the music completely. So just the words, and then some. I think remix changes the genre or style, so you can make a happy hardcore version of Billie Jean.
Now I'm interested in that. Okay, you're selling it to me now.
Here we go. And then create lets you use your own lyrics with an artist's voice and style, but there'll be some rules around topic and language and style, so you couldn't have virtual Drake rapping a Nazi anthem and that sort of stuff. You know, like there'll be rules, guardrails. It's called.
I mean, I'd like to see Kendrick Lamar come back from that.
Well, quite.
All right.
And key to all this is again, artists and songwriters are going to have to opt into this. So their labels and publishers will have to convince them, yes, be part of this Starstruck app. And if they don't be part of it, they don't have to be.
Here's my question about this, right? If so much money is being invested into creating technology that essentially creates remixes and artists or AI versions of artists making alternative versions of songs, why not just pay the artist to go and do it? Why not pay? If you want a happy hardcore version of Billie Jean, it's probably out there already. Why not just give that person some money? And if you want Taylor Swift to do a cover version of artist XYZ, why not just pay her to do it?
I mean, I think the first is more affordable than the second. There,
well, correct. But surely, you take my point, right? If we're going to get the songs coming out of this system that are going to go big are the ones with recognizably big artists' voices on them, right? So why don't you just pay them to do it?
Well, yeah, and I think is it Radio 1 has that live lounge where they have artists and they do one of their own songs and they do a cover. Yeah. And that's become quite a thing. Who are you going to cover in the live lounge? And that's always interesting, seeing Harry Styles, who's he going to cover and what's he going to do with that song?
Because it says something about Harry Styles, right?
Exactly. So there is, I think it does, I don't know, I am struggling to think, it certainly would be fun to play with this, but is it something you want to pay for? Is it something anyone wants to listen to? I did a presentation this year about the AI music I've been experimenting with. And someone put their hand up and went, how much do you listen to the stuff you've made with AI? And I was like, oh, no, I really enjoy making it for that 2 hours, but then I listen to humans when I'm listening to music. Yeah. And so I wonder, this all feels like quite a bet, doesn't it? And I know that Universal Music have a big team of people doing consumer research, asking people what they like and what they want. I assume Spotify also has that ability to do that. There must be some research that says people want this kind of thing. But like you say, we're sitting here now going,
but is this perhaps just like the wider trend in tech, which is let's make sure we give people toys essentially that keep them entertained on their devices and keep them just going round and round and making sort of quasi-making things. But this isn't real creativity. If I'm being, from an artist perspective, I don't think any artist would equate sitting down and doing songwriting, which is a really hard, laborious and long job, with, typing in some prompts and getting a song out and, in 2 hours having a finished thing that sounds, pretty sort of respectably normal. I think it feels like the value is just in that the genuinely fun part of just mixing things together and making something new. But then why would you listen to it? I don't know.
And it all stands or falls on which artists opt in, really. And that's the thing we don't know. We don't know who's opting in at the moment. When these things launch, we'll see, they've got a bunch of top artists doing it. I'm interested now because Charlie XX is in. But if it's not those, but if they all go, no, this is not what we want, and it's a bunch of artists you've never heard of, then it flops. So that is the key thing now, is like they've licensed these tools, they've done the deals, but it really is crucial now of like, what do the actual musicians think and what can labels do to persuade them if they're unconvinced.
Of course, it could help if some of those artists are dead and their families are looking after their estates, and we'll come to that later. First of all, a genuine songwriter of note, Ed Sheeran, is leaving Warner Music Group after 15 years. Where's he going and why?
Well, we don't know. But did you see his Instagram post a few weeks ago?
I do not follow Ed Sheeran on Instagram.
No. So but Ed Sheeran's at level now where when I've got my feeds of what's happening in the music industry, Ed Sheeran shaving his head is a headline that makes its way into my
his head?
3 weeks ago, posted Instagram saying, I've shaved my head. Look,
wow.
and he said then, a lot of new beginnings in my life, like cryptically, which could be personal stuff or could be business or both. But there's definitely some business changes because this week, Music Week did this report, but it was an email, I think, sent to fans saying, I'm leaving Warner Music and Asylum Records, which is the imprint he's signed to.
Yeah.
But it's very much like it's me, not them situation. So he said, this isn't a disgruntled artist leaves record label situation. He said described himself as an artist who wants a shift and a change in the way he does things professionally. So it's very amicable. Warner's still got his catalogue, and he said he left the door open to work with them because he loves people he works with there. But
not enough to stay with them.
Well, no, and so it's where it goes next. So he's already got his own independent label, like Gingerbread Man, which I can't believe they signed. They signed an artist a while ago, and they work through Warner Music's ADA division.
Yeah.
So the kind of an independent label working through Warner.
Yeah.
But he could. I mean, here we go. Like Ed Sheeran's a good mate of Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift famously signed this huge deal with Universal Music, which gives her control of her recordings, and it's more of a partnership than a traditional signing. So if he's been chatting to her, maybe she was like, well, come and have a chat to Lucian.
That would be a good WhatsApp group to be in, wouldn't it? Yeah, I mean, those two, Charlie XCX, and this does sort of seem like the direction of travel for a lot of these big artists, which is to get big in a traditional label arena, and then they've got the team around them who can do it all themselves. So do it yourself.
Well, this is it. I think we're entering this new era now because, say, what we 20. Well, Spotify is 20. It's a good moment of looking back and thinking, right? There's this wave, isn't there, of streaming era megastars. So and like that list,
top 10,
Sheeran, and they're all on limited term deals of any one kind or another, and at some point they will finish those. And they have options, and they can sign a new deal, they can go elsewhere and do it independently, they can get poached by a rival major, but they have options. And I think a lot of those people were saying, "Wow, okay, I see streaming has worked really well for me. I'm rich and I play stadiums, but I'd like more control and ownership now." So he could go independent. He could sign a Taylor Swift style deal with a different major. He could have signed that with Warner Music, I would think, if he wanted to. I'm sure they would have offered him.
I mean, it feels like Drake. I mean, who knows where Drake would go if he just leave this deal? But why would he not go solo and do it himself?
And this year, think about it, like Drake is suing his label partner, and it's quite likely to leave. Ed Sheeran is leaving Warner Music. Like two of the biggest stars, are now doing something else. And I mean, we talked last year, didn't we, about James Blake, who's not quite at their level stream-wise, but he's famous. And he talked about the idea of he found it really enriching building a team around him and doing it his own way. So if you're a Sheeran or a Drake, you can do that, or you can take lots of money for more ownership of your stuff from a big company still.
Talking about taking lots of money, any other business, Ozzy Osbourne is back. Now, explain this to me, because as I understand it, time works in one direction, and unfortunately, Ozzy is dead. So what's happening here? Yeah,
well, this was announced last week. An event called the Licensing Expo Conference, where you would expect the keynotes to usually be, licensing execs from Mattel or Hasbro or things. But they had Jack and Sharon Osbourne talking about Ozzy Osbourne's legacy. And they announced, Digital Ozzy, which is, I'm not sure that's the official name of it, but they're working with this company called Hyperreal, which has previously done, they did metaverse stuff for like Paul McCartney and Madison Beer and for the Notorious B.I.G., who again, obviously is not with us to do it. And they didn't really, they just said they're doing it. We're doing Digital Ozzy with this company. They didn't say, we don't know if it's an ABBA style concerts thing or a virtual thing, or even an AI Ozzy Osbourne you can chat to, which does sound quite fun. But I think what happened was at the event, Jack Osbourne, he was talking to an audience of licensing people. And that's the key context here. Because he said, it's almost drag and drop. You could shoot a template for a commercial, literally prompt what you want Digital Ozzy to do in that commercial, and you just drop it in. which to an audience of licensing people was like, wow. But to fans of Ozzy Osbourne, it's not gone down entirely well across the whole spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds really bleak, doesn't it? I mean, first of all, we're facing a future of like endless TV ads featuring dead pop stars, like shilling stuff for KFC or whoever, and also like I just can't, I don't know. Yeah, maybe people who are not Ozzy Osbourne fans will find that like to be a bit of a kick to sort of, oh look, there's Ozzy Osbourne.
But then Jack Osbourne did a YouTube Q&A a few days later, and I think he basically was like, I'm on for half an hour, I'm going to answer your questions. And someone asked him about reactions, and he said, yeah, he promised it's not going to be fucking lame. This isn't just hooking up an image of my dad to ChatGPT. And he also said, which is I think this is quite important. I think I'm the less cynical on this, say, aren't I? He said they talked about this quite a lot with Ozzy Osbourne before he died, and he was into it.
And that's meaningful. That's important.
Well, I think so, because I think when I think about someone, if you're a fan and someone you care about dies, I think you have certain views on what's appropriate and not. And then in reality, though, you don't know what they would have thought unless they said it. They just said, I don't want to do this after I die. And then their families know. And in this case, this is not like some grandnephew who's rinsing the legacy. It's his actual wife and children who. Yeah. So I think it's quite good that he's online talking to fans and
at least he's being open about it. Yeah, definitely.
But it does. I don't know. It does make me think like there is this technology now. You can turn a dead musician into an avatar, and you can do 24 different things with them, from ABBA style concert stuff to you can come and talk to virtual Ozzy, and it's trained on all his interviews, and it will tell you something. But so it's like, which of those things are appropriate? Which I think is probably a family estate question, really. But then, which of those things do fans think are appropriate, and do they actually want?
It's that idea of what kind of future do we want, and are we willing to let people go? For instance, we could face a future where instead of getting a new actor to act in action movies, we could just have an AI version of Bruce Willis forever, right? An established star, an established brand. People like Bruce Willis, and here's a new movie with Bruce Willis in it. And superficially, that seems like it could work, right? Because people like Bruce Willis, saying quippy one-liners and shooting people or whatever. But ultimately, that's like, do we really want that future where we're having this kind of stagnation?
Well, yeah. And in the movie industry, I think there's a lot of strong pushback from the acting unions going on, saying actually we're not going to actors are not going to sign over the rights to let a studio train in AR and today's equivalent of Bruce Willis, so they can do that. Yeah, it has to be on it. So I think the good thing in music is this seems to be very much under the control of estates and families at the moment. It's not something that like record labels aren't doing this, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was just thinking about all the artists I love who are dead, and how many of them I'd like to see in avatar form, or which we discussed in Lock-In, which ones we think.
We'll talk about that in the Lock-In, yeah.
But yeah, it's difficult. But I think the good thing here is Jack Osbourne was going on YouTube and answering questions from fans. So at least there is a channel here for fans of Ozzy to say, we don't like that idea. And he might say, but we're doing this. And they might go, oh, that sounds better. So there's a dialogue, which is a good thing.
Talking of artists who are alive and trying something new, Richie Hawtin famously performs as Plastic Man and as Richie Hawtin, and is very good at making sort of very heavy minimal techno. He's very sort of experimental with technology and music, and he's released something which is perhaps the opposite of nosebleed techno.
Yeah. Well, this is like a thing he released 5 years ago that's now getting remastered. So we're in the kind of the reissue phase of AI music, which is kind of... So he worked with this startup called Endel, and he basically gave them a bunch of sounds and beats and loops. He kind of gave them sort of fragments. And then the AI of Endel put that together into a soundscape that you could listen to. And it was designed for focusing. So if you're working or if you're kind of concentrating or relaxing. Actually, side story, I interviewed him back then around that. And, oh God, the first thing he spotted when we had a Zoom, he saw I had a synth in the background. He's like, oh, you like synths? And I was immediately more out of my depth than I've been in any Zoom call ever.
I've met Richie a couple of times, and he's a really nice guy. And he's totally enthusiastic about what he does with his music. And he really believes that like, music is a force for good. And he's a really like inspiring musician, I think.
Anyway, so this soundscape that Endel released through its app, it's been streamed for more than 5 million hours. And apparently it was about focusing, but they found that people with ADHD were finding it and saying this helps us.
Yeah.
Like audiences they didn't expect came to it. So they've basically reworked it and remastered it for this year. But it just feels like, to me, this is one of those examples where, like to your point earlier on, this artist who's dead can't consent to their stuff being remixed in someone else's style. But Richie Hawtin is very much alive. He's working with this company. He's excited about it. And what they've made is something new that sits apart from...
Yeah, it's a third thing, isn't it? And the permission is really baked in. Yeah,
which is kind of a term that like people a bit rude about it, functional music. But music to help you focus. Now, you could get a random AI to spurt out 2 hours of music when you're doing your homework or your work. Or you could listen to this thing that Richie Hawtin has put his humanity into.
And gets paid
fully, So I think this is a good example of, for all we might be cynical about some of the other AI music remixing stuff, this is a good example of an artist actually having agency, I think. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of those things. I mean, this is, like you say, this has been around for nearly 6 years. I remember I got an early version of this Infinite Plastic Man app, or whatever it was called, from Endel. And I once, this is pre-COVID and pre-children, I put it on a party in Berlin, and no one noticed. It just fitted in with the kind of minimal techno soundtrack that was already on.
Berlin children's parties.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do you know, I saw him, he supported the Chemical Brothers once, or rather he played after them because it was a writer. And my nose actually bled, and I felt so proud of myself.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've been to a techno performance where my nose has bled. It's proper techno.
He would actually appreciate that, I think. The final thing in this section is that vinyl traditionally is one of the sort of worst things that you could make, because it's made out of PVC, and there's a lot of chemicals that are bad that are part of that process. And then, of course, everybody wants 180 gram vinyl, which is heavy to transport, and there's a big carbon footprint and blah, blah, blah. But now you can make vinyl out of recycled records. We discussed that a couple of weeks ago, but the question that every audiophile has is, do they actually sound any good?
Yeah. And Warner Music has been working with a company called GZ Media to find out, which is kind of, the concept is like, once upon a time, if you made a physical piece of media that no one wanted to buy, you had to go out into the desert and bury it in a landfill, like Atari famously with game cartridges did. But this is, so basically Warner and GZ Media, they took 10,000 unsold records. Don't know which ones. Maybe the last Ed Sheeran album. Who knows? And they shredded them. Started by, which sounds like quite fun. I hope it's jumping into a big bath with hammers, but I assume it's a machine process. And then they pressed new records, and like some of these new records had like 10% recycled material, and some of them were fully 100%. And then ran all manner of audiophile tests to test. Well, it was about, is there a difference in the audio quality, and also importantly, the perceived audio quality. So actually people listening to it.
How warm is it?
Well, that's it, and so you play me anything, I can barely hear differences between, someone blaring it out of their phone speaker and a big system, because my ears are terrible. But what they found was that there were minor differences, but comparable listening quality. And so it does not inherently compromise perceived audio quality. People listen to it and we're like, sounds fine. Which is I think a good sign.
For sure. I mean, I think, also, if I was being cynical for a change, I would say that a lot of people buying vinyl are buying it partially for listening, partially for displaying, and they're probably not listening to them on record players that are particularly high quality anyway. So what's the difference? And, we're
going to have letters.
Yeah.
You're in trouble now.
I'll go to bat for the audiophiles. Yeah. But we've written about on Musical Eye as well, a German company that produces a record, sort of another type of recycled plastic record called Eco Record, which is a sort of injection molded version of records, and they're made from recycled plastic bottles. And the last Coldplay album, for instance, was released this way: a moon-shaped pool. No, wait, that's Radiohead. The moon-titled one that Coldplay did.
Yeah.
Something about a moon. Anyway, that one had a sticker on the front saying, this record is made of 9 recycled bottles recovered from the ocean. And that all feels really, really good. And of course, the audiophile question is, yes, but do they sound as good? So I went a couple of weeks ago to an event in Berlin in one of those audiophile high-end record stores that I would never dare to go into, because it's got like $2 million worth of record players in it. And they did exactly that. They had 2 records, one pressed the traditional way, one on this Eco record, and they played them on the same sound system, which I think I figured out had a value of about 150,000 euros.
So mid range,
yeah. I mean, it's a sort of pocket money one, and I couldn't tell the difference. I mean, and they were really played through these incredible speakers. I couldn't tell the difference. Maybe someone could, but I mean, if you put
some guy at the back going, "Oh, the high end frequency."
Oh yeah, that isn't very warm. Yeah. It's kind of lukewarm. Anyway, recycled vinyl is definitely the future, I think. And also, apparently, the pricing of making these records is only marginally above traditional vinyl. And that's a really good thing, and is what will make a change. So,
and it's a thing we haven't talked about, isn't it? Like 19 years, we think we're 19 years now into the vinyl revival, like 19 years of growth.
I think we have to stop calling it a revival now.
Well, yeah, right. But I think most of us, and I'm guilty of this, certainly go, this is brilliant news. Vinyl's wonderful, blah, blah. But we don't really talk about the planetary impact of this. And like I say, it's not just about the manufacturing of the vinyl, which has a certain impact, but also, if they don't sell. So I think it's good that people are tackling that issue of it, because I think it's exciting that vinyl has been on this long-term surge. And if that can now be a sustainable business climate-wise,
I mean, anything recyclable is good, right? Recycled plastic bottles, recycle vinyl into new vinyl. That is a really huge leap, and it's great that they're getting the costs down to per price, very, very close to traditional vinyl, and it gives labels and teams an option, and the artist can drive that option. Say, no, I want recycled vinyl.
And good that labels like Warner Music is doing these tests with another company. It's not just like someone's doing the technology and then having to sell it to labels. Labels are seeing this and going, we want to be involved in.
And finally, Stu, Badger. For those of you who may not know what we're talking about, you may be wondering, do I have this song queued up? Yes, I do.
Of course you do.
Okay, so you can fill us in on what this is, but that is now a preserved cultural artifact in the UK. Stu, are we drunk, or is something happening here?
Yeah, go home, Brits. No, this is a 2003 viral Flash animation. Now we'll have to explain Flash now to anyone who was born in the last 20 years. Flash, of course, the famous animation technology that led humans into very bad ways, including introductions for websites where you had to watch an animation before you could get in.
Yeah.
But it was also huge for it was our age people's memes and games and animation. And there's this guy called Mr. Weeble, not his real name, possibly. Maybe his real name, but no, definitely not his real name. He's a British animator, and he made this. And it's like basically, it's like what would you say? It's deliberately rudimentary animation with badgers, clip art badgers appearing.
Yeah.
And it's an earworm. And so the British Film Institute has officially preserved it, which apparently involves, this is fascinating, contacting the creator, but not just saying, can we preserve your thing? It's like, have you got the original file? And I mean, I don't know how many original files of things you were doing in 2003 you've got that you can access.
Because the original files, they sound warmer when you listen to them, don't they?
It's true. And then they store it in 2 robot-operated tape libraries for posterity in different places, obviously, because one of them burnt down and the other one is still there.
Wow.
But I mean, the BFI, so they're kind of a publicly funded film institute, aren't they? In the
yes.
UK? And they've also preserved Charlie Bit My Finger, the famous YouTube video. These 2 things were the kind of headlines. But it does make you think, like, this stuff is silly, perhaps, but it is part of people's history. But when it's digital media, it could be done in a technology that no longer works, stored on a format that no longer can be accessed. So this work is, I think, important, even if we, badger might make people who don't know it go, what is this? Why aren't you preserving the greatest music that was created ever,
I think it is up there, isn't it? I mean, I'm old enough to remember when this came out and it emerged on the message boards of a website called Beta, which is still running and is a sort of home for all this ridiculous sort of animation and pictures and stuff like that. And I remember it very clearly because it was very, very new, hadn't seen anything like that before, and it was very impactful. So I totally understand why it's been preserved. And of course, this is the argument, to go serious for a moment, of the sort of Internet Archive platforms that are pulling in all of the creative input of humanity and storing it and saying, well, these video games, it might not work on a platform in the future, so we're making that work. These songs, we don't, just because they're around now doesn't mean they'll be there forever. Of course, that frustrates a lot of rights holders who see their work being infringed from their perspective. But it does have, this is important, right?
And preservation is something Bert has new. Yeah. So, this is when Spotify comes out and goes, you know what, you can have Jimi Hendrix covering Badger, Badger, Badger.
Now, okay, sold.
Now, this leads me on to, I'm going to leave everyone with one earworm. 10 years after this animation came out, it was remade. Did you ever hear this? It was re-recorded as Save the Badger, Badger, Badger. Now, can you guess who played guitar on the cover? That it's called Save the Badger, Badger, Badger. There's a clue there.
No.
Brian May out of Queen, Sir Brian May.
Right.
Played guitar. And it also has shouting from Brian Blessed, the actor.
Oh, wow.
And this was released as part of a campaign against badger culling in the UK. So everyone out there who's heard Badger Badger for the first time now, go and look for Save the Badger 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 and enjoy what is even more bonkers. And I guess in 10 years' time might get preserved in its turn.
I will absolutely link to that below the podcast. And that's it for us this week. Thank you very much for listening. As ever, if you're enjoying the show, please do spread the word about it. You can just point them at tpom.uk. That's tpom.uk. And you can support us as well, if you'd like to, via Patreon by signing up to become a superfan, which also gets you access to our weekly pub-themed lock-in, where you get to access our chat for about 15 to 20 minutes of bonus material after the main show ends. You can access that at patreon.com/thepriceofmusic. And as ever, do let us know your thoughts, feelings, questions, and observations. We want your vibes. Anything about how the music industry works, we'll do our best to figure it out and explain it to you. So drop us a line with your questions at thepriceofmusic@gmail.com. That is thepriceofmusic@gmail.com. So that's it from me, Joe Sparrow, and him, Stuart Dredge, for this week. See you next week.